and the beginning of something new that nobody knew what it would be, was the right and opportune historical moment for impacting such a dramatic change in the situation in Palestine, which is an important lesson for the future. If we will ever reach a similar twilight zone in the history of Israel and Palestine, we should expect the Israelis to do something very dramatic, because they haven't yet achieved the purity of the space and the purity of the race. And they were still looking for that opportunity. In a matter of year, between February 1947 to February 1948, the plan was completed. It divided Palestine into 12 areas. Each area was given to a different military unit, and each military unit was ordered eventually to systematically occupy the villages and the urban neighborhoods, expel the people, destroy physically the houses, and detonate TNT in them and mines so that people would not be able to return. From February 1948 up to October 1948, in a matter of 7 months, the plan was executed. And as you know, half of Palestine's villages were occupied and destroyed, half of Palestine's towns were demolished, and half of Palestine's population were expelled. There were secondary aspects to this ethnic cleansing, as always happens in ethnic cleansing operation. The property of the people, their bank accounts, their physical and cultural heritage was pillaged, looted, and taken. One of the most bizarre and probably not as cruel as many other aspects, but one which should be mentioned in universities, bizarre sort of byproduct of this dispossession was a tour by university professors from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, who went from one Palestinian house to the other in order to get their library books, in order to have a proper Orientalist library in the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And these were Jewish professors who witnessed, some of them with their eyes, the burning of Jewish books in Nazi Germany. And somehow this association between a destruction of one literature and the destruction of another literature had never occurred to them. Amazing. I'm not going to go into my own explanation why did it happen. The most troubling, I think, lesson from the past about this ethnic cleansing is the world reaction to it. Very many people witnessed what I talk about in my book and what I just mentioned here very briefly. There were United Nations emissaries, there were International Red Cross delegates on the ground, there were leading journalists who reported back home about the ethnic cleansing. Their reports are very accurate, their reports are very genuine, but they were never published. Only I and other historians have seen them for the first time. The editors in New York decided not to publish them, the headquarters of the United Nations decided not to publish them, and the headquarters of the International Red Cross decided not to publish them. But they were there, everybody knew about it. And the world decided, I mean, not the world, those who formulated public opinion in the West, which equated in those days the world, which of course only represented 1/3 of the world, they went into something which I think we can call a conspiracy of silence. It is a conspiracy of silence if you witness a crime and you know it is a crime and you decide not to report it, because you don't want to be involved with accusation of the criminals whom you regard as victims of your own crimes. It's a problem. It still is a problem. That's one of the great source of strengths for the amazing Israeli and Zionist propaganda that has no logic, has no moral high ground, and yet is accepted, not because of its validity, but because of the guilt complex that the West is unable to liberate itself for good reasons, for what they have done to the Jews of Europe in the Second World War. Far more important, I think, in this respect, is that this conspiracy of silence sent a message to the State of Israel that as long as the victims of ethnic cleansing are Palestinians, and as long as the perpetrators are Jews, the world will not interfere. And the biggest Israeli achievement, and before that the Zionist achievement, was getting from the Western powers the permission to treat the Palestine question as a domestic issue, rather than as a regional problem, or a humanist problem, or an international problem. It was decided in London, in New York, in Ottawa, in Paris, that anything Israelis do to the Palestinians is not the concern of any of the Western powers. It hasn't changed much in many ways. And the message that this is permissible, and the message that a crime of this magnitude, imagine any other country in 1948 that half of its population would be expelled in less than a year, that half of its villages would be destroyed, and half of its towns would be demolished. Any other country you can think of that it would happen in 1948. But the message to the State of Israel was that integrating the idea of ethnic purity and integrating the means of achieving it through ethnic cleansing, among other means, is a legitimate thing, meant that this turned into the ideological infrastructure of the new state. And this is why the Israelis continued to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians after 1948. Between 1948 and 1956, because Israel did not complete the ethnic cleansing because of the fatigue of the soldiers and the steadfastness of the Palestinians, especially in the north, the Israelis depopulated 36 villages up to 1956. It ended with the massacre in Kfar Qasim, where the Israeli soldiers killed men and young men in the village of Kfar Qasim. And for a while, you can say that in between 1956 and 1967, there is a lull in the ethnic cleansing inertia. Not that the Palestinians who living under Israel are enjoying life. They were put under very severe military rule. But nonetheless, massive ethnic cleansing ended in 1956. The previous speaker mentioned the ethnic cleansing of 1967. In fact, 1967 is, or the Israeli behavior in 1967 is a direct result from the conspiracy of silence of 1948. I'm presently working on a new book that looks into the Israeli policy in the early years of the occupation. And the continuity from 1948 is bewildering. And I want to share with you some of my findings as part of that historical journey, which I think is relevant for the present and the future. Think about the situation in 1967. Here you have an Israeli government, a very unique government, by the way. It was the first ever unity government in Israel. It really represented all the Zionist parties, from Menachem Begin in the right to Mapam in the left. We never had in our history such a representative government of Zionist ideology, with all the shades and innuendos. And that particular government, unlike the very small cabal of people who decided on ethnic cleansing in 1948, that particular government was faced with an impossible Zionist reality as far as they were concerned. Here was the State of Israel successfully ethnically cleansing the Palestinians out of Palestine in 1948, successfully taking over 80% of Palestine. And here they are, due to their own policies, having, on the one hand, 100% of Palestine, but having another 2 million Palestinians in it. How are they going to solve it?